Right before Christmas, these three beautiful Polytechnic students followed their boyfriends home for just a small party. Little did they know they'll become a December sacrifice. This is a great lesson for young girls of nowadays. Here's what happened. It was a quiet morning as usual. Mama Toba woke early, her heart heavy like a stone in a river. She knelt on her mat and began to pray. Her voice rose like the morning cock's crow, calling her children to join her. Toba, Tayo, come and pray. Toba, her beautiful daughter, who was in her final year in the Polytechnic, knelt by her side. After the prayers, Mama Toba turned to her. Her voice was sharp and firm, like a mother hen protecting her chicks. Toba, listen to me. Don't follow anybody out today, no matter what, she said, her eyes as wide as the morning sky. But Mama, I don't. Toba began to speak, but Mama Toba cut her off. Don't argue with me, you hear me? Don't follow anybody out today. If they like, let them beg you or promise you heaven and earth. Say no. Mama Toba repeated the warning again and again, her voice rising like a drumbeat in the village square. Toba nodded, her head moving like a lizard on a hot rock. I won't, Mama, she promised, but her mind was already elsewhere. The morning chores were done, and Toba dressed in her neat clothes. She tied her scarf carefully, waved her mother goodbye, and walked out into the bright day. Her steps were quick and light, like a bird hopping to freedom. At school, Toba met her two best friends, Amma and Adoja. They stood out like peacocks in a flock of hens, dressed as if they were going to a grand festival. Amma wore a bright dress, while Adoja's skirt sparkled like the stars. Toba, you're looking fresh this morning, Amma said, laughing. Yes, fresh like morning dew, Adoja added, her smile as wide as the river. The three friends stood together, laughing and talking, unaware that the day was about to take a turn darker than the bottom of a clay pot. Have you heard? Amma said, her eyes sparkling like sunlight on water. Classes have been cancelled until next year. Ah, so my transport fare today was wasted, Toba sighed, shaking her head. Don't mind them, Adoja said with a grin. But don't worry, we won't let the day go to waste. Toba's brow furrowed. What do you mean? We're going to a party, Amma announced, her hands clapping together with excitement. A small one, nothing serious. Come with us, Toba. Toba froze, her mother's warning ringing in her ears like the sound of a warning gong. I can't, she said, shaking her head. I need to study. I can't just waste my time. Amma rolled her eyes, and Adoja leaned closer, her voice soft and teasing. It's just a small party, Toba. No harm will come. Come on, we'll just dance, eat, and come back. Don't be boring. No, I can't, Toba started, but her friends cut her off. Toba, are you now a grandmother? Live a little, Amma said, laughing. Okay, Toba finally agreed, her voice low like a beaten drum, but only for a little while. Not long after, the sound of loud music filled the air. Danny, Adoja's boyfriend, arrived in a shiny car, the music booming like thunder. Raji and Faji, his friends, were with him, their grins wide and confident. Let's go, girls, Danny called out, his voice full of excitement. The girls climbed into the car, their laughter rising like birds into the sky. Toba sat quietly, her heart uneasy, but her friend's joy was infectious. The car sped off, the music loud and the mood high, as they headed toward what they thought would be a night of fun. The house was full of life, music blasting like the beating of drums during a festival. Laughter and cheers filled the air as people danced in pairs, their bodies swaying like trees in the wind. Toba, shy at first, soon found herself dancing with Faji, while Amma was paired with Raji and Adoja with Danny. The friends laughed and danced, their joy bubbling over like palm wine in a full calabash. After a while, Danny clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. Friends, it's time for a special treat. I have something planned just for us, he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Excitement rippled through the group as Danny led them outside. The girls, giggling and curious, followed as he drove them to a nearby hotel. The table was already set, with plates of steaming food and bottles of drinks shining under the soft light. Eat, my queens, Danny said with a flourish, pulling out chairs for the girls. The girls ate and drank, their laughter echoing through the room like the melody of a happy song. Meanwhile, far away, Mama Toba sat in her market stall, her heart heavy like a sack of stones. Toba should have been back by now. She tried to call her, but the phone rang and rang with no answer. Why won't she pick up? Mama Toba muttered, her palms sweaty as she dialed again. Her spirit was restless, like the wind before a storm. Back at the hotel, Toba's phone buzzed on the table, unnoticed in the noise and excitement. She didn't hear it. The music was too loud and the night too enchanting. But suddenly, the enchantment began to fade. Toba's head felt heavy, like someone had poured sand into it. Her vision blurred and her legs wobbled. She grabbed the edge of the table, but the room spun faster and faster. Ama slumped first, then Adoja. Toba fought to stay awake, but her strength gave way, and darkness swallowed her whole. When Toba woke up, she was no longer in the hotel. The air was cold and smelled of damp earth. She looked around and saw cracked walls and broken windows. They were in an uncompleted building, deep in the middle of nowhere. Her hands and legs were tied with thick ropes. She turned her head and saw Ama and Adoya beside her, also tied and unconscious. Fear gripped her heart like the claws of a wild beast. Where are we? She whispered, her voice trembling like leaves in the Hamatan breeze. Wake up, Toba whispered urgently, nudging them with her elbow. Her voice trembled like dry leaves in the Hamatan wind. The girls stirred slowly, their eyes wide with fear as they took in their surroundings. In front of them stood Danny, Raji, and Faji, their cheerful faces replaced with cold, emotionless stares. Behind them, an old man emerged from the shadows. His presence filled the room like smoke, choking and oppressive. He held knives of different shapes and sizes, their blades gleaming in the dim light. Beside him was a calabash, empty but waiting. Do not shout, Danny warned, his voice low and dangerous. Toba and her friends began to cry, their tears falling like rain as they begged for mercy. But their captors didn't flinch. The old man's eyes burned like fire as he stepped closer, the air thick with the promise of evil. The room was silent except for the dripping sound of water from the ceiling. The old man stood tall, his eyes sharp like the blade of a hunter's machete. His voice, deep and strange, echoed in the darkness. Pick a knife, he commanded, holding out the gleaming weapons. Anyone who refuses will be flogged until their skin peels like yam. Toba and her friends cried harder, their sobs filling the empty space. Please, we didn't do anything wrong, Ama begged, her voice trembling like a frightened bird. Silence! The old man barked, his voice like thunder. He motioned to Danny and his friends, who stepped forward with ropes in hand. The girls screamed and struggled, but the ropes held them tightly. The old man brought out a small black bottle filled with a dark, foul-smelling liquid. He poured it into a wooden cup and held it to Adoja's lips. Drink, he said, his voice calm but cold. Adoya shook her head, her lips trembling. No, please, she begged. But Danny grabbed her head, forcing the liquid into her mouth. She swallowed, her body shaking as tears streamed down her face. Moments later, Adoya's body stiffened, her eyes wide with fear. She fell to the ground, lifeless. The old man stepped forward, raising a sharp knife. With one swift motion, he cut off her head. Blood poured into the calabash like a river. Andani and his friends chanted strange words, their voices blending with the old man's. Toba screamed, her cries piercing the air like a broken flute. "No! No!" she shouted, her body twisting in the ropes. "Next!" the old man said, turning his eyes to Toba. They forced the wooden cup to her lips, but Toba fought with all her strength. The bitter liquid burned her throat, but as it reached her stomach, she vomited it out. Again and again, they made her drink, and each time she retched, her body rejecting the poison. "She is strong," the old man muttered, his brows furrowing. He turned to Amma, who was too weak to fight. She drank the potion with trembling hands, her body collapsing moments later. The old man wasted no time, raising his knife and cutting off her head. Blood filled the calabash once more, the red liquid reflecting the flickering light of a candle. Toba's heart shattered like a broken pot. Her tears fell endlessly as she watched her friends die before her eyes. "Why did I come here?" she whispered to herself, her voice choked with regret. "Force her again!" the old man commanded. Danny and Faji held Toba down, pouring more of the liquid into her mouth. But no matter how much they gave her, she vomited it all out, her body refusing to give in. The old man finally stepped back, his face hard like a rock. "She cannot be killed," he declared, his voice heavy with anger. "She will be made useless instead. Let her live as a shell of herself." Toba's body was weak from the beating, her tears mixing with the dirt on her face. She sat in the darkness, her soul crushed, as the old man prepared for the next stage of his ritual. The market was bustling with life, but Mama Toba couldn't shake the unease in her chest. Her hands trembled as she arranged yams on her wooden table. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and picked up her phone again. "Toba, pick up," she whispered, dialing her daughter's number for the 10th time. The phone didn't ring. It was switched off. Mama Toba's heart raced, beating like a drum in her chest. Her mind swirled with thoughts darker than a stormy night. "God, please protect my child," she prayed under her breath, her lips moving quickly. She looked around, but the market's noise drowned her thoughts. Far away, Danny and his friends followed the old man's final instructions. Toba, barely alive, was dumped out of the car to the roadside opposite the market. Her clothes were torn, her body bruised, and her skin smeared with blood. She lay motionless, like a rag doll discarded in the dirt, as the car drove off at a very high speed. A market woman was the first to see her. She screamed, dropping the basket of tomatoes she was carrying. "Ah! Somebody come and see! They just dumped her!" People rushed to the scene, their voices rising like a swarm of bees. "Who is she? What happened to her?" they shouted, their faces filled with fear. Mama Toba's stall was close to the roadside. She heard the commotion and ran toward the crowd, her feet moving faster than they ever had before. When she saw the girl lying there, her knees buckled, and she let out a wail that pierced the heavens. "Toba, my child!" Toba opened her eyes weakly. Her voice was faint, like a whisper carried away by the wind. "Mama," she managed to say before collapsing into Mama Toba's arms. Mama Toba's tears flowed freely as she cradled her daughter. Her once bright Toba was now a shadow of herself, her body battered and her spirit broken. Without wasting a moment, Mama Toba lifted her daughter, her strength fueled by desperation. "Make way!" "Make way!" she shouted, pushing through the crowd. She carried Toba straight to the prophet's house, her mind racing with prayers. "God, don't let my child die. Please, don't let this be the end," she whispered, her voice trembling as she approached the prophet's door. The prophet, a man with a long beard and eyes that seemed to see beyond the physical, opened the door before she could knock. "Bring her in," he said softly, his tone calm but serious. Mama Toba laid Toba on the mat, her hands shaking as she explained what had happened. The prophet nodded, his eyes scanning the fragile girl before him. "This is not an ordinary battle," he said, his voice heavy. "But with prayer, she will live." Mama Toba knelt beside her daughter, her hands clasped tightly. "Do whatever you can, prophet. Save my child." Her voice broke with emotion as tears streamed down her face. Outside, the crowd murmured, their whispers spreading the story of the bloodied girl found by the road. The market that was once alive with laughter and trade was now hushed with fear. Meanwhile, something even more terrible had happened somewhere else. After dumping Toba, the car roared down the dusty road, music blaring as Danny and his friends laughed like hyenas after a feast. "This December will be the best ever," Danny shouted, gripping the steering wheel with pride. Raji leaned back in the seat, a grin plastered on his face. "We'll have everything we've ever dreamed of. Riches, power, everything," Faji added, nodding as he sipped from a bottle. But their celebration didn't last long. Just 3 minutes from the market, the car sped around a bend, and out of nowhere, a massive truck loomed in front of them like a wall of doom. The crash was sudden and brutal, like thunder striking the earth. The car crumpled like paper, its music silenced forever. Raji died on the spot, his body lifeless in the wreckage. Danny screamed in pain as blood poured from his legs, now crushed beyond saving. One of his eyes was gone, leaving his face disfigured. Faji groaned, his arm severed, hanging limply as he cried out in agony. News of the accident spread through the town like wildfire. Whispers turned to shouts as people connected the dots. "It's them," someone said. "The boys who dumped that girl at the market. Their evil deeds have caught up with them," another muttered, shaking his head. Back at the prophet's house, Toba lay on a mat, her breathing steady but weak. Mama Toba sat beside her, watching as the prophet prayed and placed herbs on her wounds. Slowly, Toba's eyes opened and she began to speak in a broken voice, like a bird with a wounded wing. "They killed them," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Amma and Adoja, they cut off their heads. I should have listened to you, Mama." Mama Toba's heart broke anew as she listened to her daughter's harrowing tale. The prophet placed a hand on Toba's forehead and spoke softly. "Her recovery will be slow, but she will live. The scars of the soul may never fade, but she is strong." The town buzzed with the story of the crash and Toba's survival. People spoke of divine justice, of how evil can never escape punishment. The police came quickly, dragging Danny and Faji out of the wrecked car. Broken and battered, they were taken to the hospital before being thrown into prison. Their dreams of wealth had turned to ashes. Danny sat in his cell, his legs gone and his single eye staring at the wall. Faji clutched the stump where his arm used to be, his head bowed in regret. "Why did we do it?" Danny muttered. "We should have stayed poor." The once proud boys now faced a life of misery, their greed having destroyed everything. At the prophet's house, Toba recovered slowly. She could no longer walk without help. and her voice was faint, like a shadow of its former self. The prophet told Mama Toba, "Your daughter will live, but she will carry these scars for the rest of her life. Let her story be a lesson." Mama Toba wept, holding her daughter close. "At least you are alive," she whispered. The town learned from Toba's tragedy. Parents warned their children to listen and avoid temptations. Young girls vowed to be more cautious. Their laughter now tinged with the memory of Toba's tale. The December that began with joy ended in sorrow. Amma and Adoja were gone. Dani and Faji were ruined, and Toba would never be the same. Her story became a warning that echoed through the town. Be careful who you follow home. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from the tale, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. Thank you.